On February 25, 1957, a college student named Frank Guthrum was checking muskrat traps in the woods off Susquehanna Road in northeast Philadelphia. It was a cold Tuesday morning. He almost didn't stop when he saw the cardboard box. Inside was a small boy. He was naked. He was wrapped loosely in a plaid flannel blanket. He had been placed there, carefully it seemed, like someone wanted to discard him, but couldn't quite bring themselves to just throw him away. He was between 4 and 6 years old. He weighed only 30 pounds, roughly half of what a healthy child his age should weigh. His hair had been recently cut, clumsily, probably with dull scissors. His fingernails had been trimmed. Someone had bathed him after he died. His eyes were blue. No one ever reported him missing. Not a single person in all of Philadelphia came forward and said, "That's my child." Not a neighbor, not a teacher, not a relative. For 65 years, he had no name. This is the full, documented story of the boy in the box. Every verified detail, every credible lead, every dead end, investigated the way this child deserved from the very beginning. Let's establish exactly where we are and what was found. The location was a wooded, semi-rural dumping ground just off Susquehanna Road, near the intersection of Verey Road, in the Fox Chase neighborhood of Philadelphia. In 1957, this was still a transitional area. Suburban sprawl was pushing into what had been farmland and forest. The box itself was identifiable. It was a J.C. Penney bassinet carton, the kind used to ship baby furniture. Investigators were able to trace it. The box had been sold at a J.C. Penney store in the Philadelphia area, and detectives canvassed customers who had purchased that specific model. They found the purchaser. She lived near the dump site, but she had no connection to the boy, and that lead went nowhere. Now here is something critical that gets overlooked in most retellings. The boy's body showed evidence of severe malnutrition. He weighed approximately 30 pounds at an estimated age of 4 to 6. The medical examiner noted his body showed signs of chronic undernourishment over a significant period of time. Multiple healed injuries consistent with repeated physical abuse. A fresh cut or bruise above the left eyebrow that investigators initially considered the possible cause of death. Chafing on his wrists and ankles consistent with restraint, meaning there was evidence he may have been tied up or confined. The cause of death was listed as blunt force trauma to the head, but the condition of his body told a much longer story. This child had been suffering for months, possibly years, before he died. What made investigators immediately certain this was not an accidental death? 1. He had been bathed after death. There was no dirt, no outdoor debris on the body. His skin was clean. 2. His hair had been cut very recently, post-mortem or immediately before death. Clumps of hair were found on and around the body, suggesting the cutting happened near or at the dump site, or the hair fell from his head when he was placed in the box. 3. A man's blue corduroy cap was found near the scene. It did not belong to the boy. It was never conclusively linked to anyone. 4. There was food in his stomach. He had eaten, possibly macaroni and cheese or a similar starchy meal, not long before his death. This matters. It means whoever killed him fed him shortly before he died. This was not neglect followed by disposal. This was a controlled, deliberate act. Philadelphia homicide detectives, led in part by Remington Bristow, a man who would spend the rest of his working life on this case, launched what became one of the most extensive missing child investigations in American history at that time. The first challenge was identification. They had no name, no missing persons report, nothing. What they did have was a face. The medical examiner's office arranged for professional photographs of the boy, cleaned and composed, to be distributed to the public. Detectives had a sketch artist create a more lifelike rendering. They printed and distributed over 400,000 flyers. They placed ads in newspapers. They worked with the FBI. They got thousands of tips. None of them led to the boy's identity. Here is something that tells you a great deal about the circumstances of this child's life. In an era before widespread television, before the internet, before Amber Alerts, Investigators managed to put this boy's face in front of millions of people across the eastern United States. And not a single person recognized him. That silence is not random. That silence means he was hidden. He was kept from the world deliberately. He didn't go to school. He didn't play in front of neighbors. He was invisible while he was alive, and he remained invisible after he died. Detectives made specific canvases. They went door to door in the Fox Chase and surrounding neighborhoods. They interviewed employees at nearby businesses. They checked hospitals for records of a child matching his description being treated for injuries. They also checked foster care records and institutions. In 1957, Philadelphia had a number of private foster and care homes operating with limited oversight. This is where the investigation produced its first significant lead, one that would resurface repeatedly for decades. Near the dump site, there was a private foster home and care facility operated by a woman. Several investigators noted that children at this facility seemed fearful and showed signs of physical abuse, but no direct connection to the boy could be proven at the time. Records were limited. The facility was eventually closed for unrelated reasons. I want to be precise here. No charges were ever filed in connection with this facility and the boy in the box case. It remains a lead, not a conclusion. Detective Remington Bristow became personally consumed by this case. He spent his own money. He visited psychics, which I mention not to mock, but because it illustrates the desperation of a detective who had exhausted conventional methods. He kept the case file at home. He visited the boy's grave. He died in 1993, still having never solved it. In 1998, the Philadelphia Homicide Cold Case Unit reopened the investigation. In 2002, the remains were exhumed for DNA analysis. The technology at the time was not sufficient to generate a workable profile from the degraded samples. They tried again and again. Let's go through the serious, investigated theories in order of evidentiary weight. Theory 1. The foster home connection. This is the theory that Remington Bristow believed most strongly, and it's the one with the most circumstantial support. In the mid-1950s, a woman operated a home not far from the dump site. She took in children. Multiple neighbors and former area residents recalled that children there appeared malnourished and frightened. One investigator noted a child matching the boy in the box's description being seen at or near the property. The problem: the woman denied knowing the boy. No documentary evidence directly linking him to the home was ever produced. The home kept poor or incomplete records, which was not unusual for private foster arrangements of that era. By the time investigators intensified focus, years had passed. This theory has never been proven, but it has also never been fully disproven. Theory 2. The M Witness, 2002. In 2002, a woman contacted the Vidocq Society, a private organization of retired law enforcement professionals and forensic experts who consult on cold cases. The woman, who was given the pseudonym M to protect her identity, claimed that the boy in the box was the son of her mother's abusive husband. Her account, as documented by the Vidocq Society, she stated that her stepfather had purchased the boy from his birth mother. She stated that her mother and stepfather physically abused the boy. She stated that her mother accidentally killed him during a bathing incident. He slipped, struck his head. She stated that her stepfather then cut the boy's hair, bathed the body, and disposed of it. Verified source. Richard Walter and William Fleischer, Vidocq Society members, have publicly discussed this account in interviews and in the book The Murder Room by Michael Capuzzo, 2010. Now, critical evaluation of M. Points that add credibility. Her account was internally consistent across multiple interviews. She provided specific details about the location and the bassinet carton that had not been made public. She did not seek money or attention. In fact, she was reluctant to come forward. Points that reduce certainty. She was a child herself at the time, meaning her memories were subject to distortion. There was no physical evidence to corroborate the specific individuals she named. The people she accused were deceased by the time she came forward, meaning they could not be questioned or exonerated. The Vidocq Society took her account seriously. Philadelphia homicide detectives took her account seriously. It has not been confirmed as the definitive solution. Theory 3. The institutional connection. Some investigators have maintained that the boy's condition, extreme malnourishment, evidence of confinement, the complete absence of any missing person report, suggests he may have been a child hidden within an informal or unlicensed care arrangement, or possibly kept isolated by a single family with no community ties. The evidence for institutionalized or long-term confinement comes from the restraint marks and the sustained nature of his malnourishment. This wasn't a child who missed a few meals. This was a child who had been systematically deprived over time. The absence of any dental records match, any hospital record, any school record, in a city of 2 million people points to deliberate concealment, not simple poverty or neglect. What all three serious theories share, they point to someone who knew this child intimately, who had sustained access to him, who controlled every aspect of his existence, and who disposed of him in a way that showed, however twisted, some remnant of care. They bathed him, they wrapped him, they put him in a box instead of in the woods. That matters psychologically, and investigators have noted it for decades. On December 8, 2022, the Philadelphia Police Department made an announcement that stunned everyone who had followed this case. After 65 years, the boy in the box had a name. He was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Here is exactly what investigators did and how they got there. The break came through investigative genetic genealogy, the same technology that identified the Golden State Killer. Investigators worked with the laboratory to develop a DNA profile from the exhumed remains. They then uploaded that profile to GEDmatch, a public genealogy database where people voluntarily submit their DNA for ancestry purposes. From there, genealogists traced Joseph's family tree through matches, working backward and forward through generations. They identified relatives, narrowed bloodlines, and ultimately confirmed his identity through cross-referencing with historical records. His name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Now, here is where I need to be very precise with you, because the police have been deliberately careful with what they've disclosed, and for important reasons. What investigators have confirmed publicly? His name is Joseph Augustus Zarelli. His parents are deceased. He had siblings. Those siblings and other family members are alive as of the announcement. Investigators have spoken with living family members. What investigators have not confirmed publicly? The identities of his parents. The specific circumstances of his life prior to death. Whether any living person bears criminal responsibility. Whether the case is moving toward prosecution. This restraint is significant. If investigators had no actionable leads and no living suspects, there would be no reason to protect information about deceased parents. The fact that they are being careful about what they say suggests the investigation is ongoing in a meaningful way. Joseph was born, lived, was killed, and was discarded, all within the fog of a family system that hid him completely from the outside world. He is now interred at Ivy Hill Cemetery in Philadelphia. His headstone, updated after the 2022 announcement, bears his name. For the first time in 65 years, the grave of America's unknown child has a name on it. Naming Joseph Zarelli was monumental, but it did not solve the case. As of the time of this video, no arrests have been made, no charges have been filed. The Philadelphia Police Department Cold Case Unit lists the case as active and open. Here is what the identification tells us and what it doesn't. What we now know. Joseph had a documented family. He had parents who were alive in 1957 who would have known he was missing. Neither of them, based on all available evidence, ever reported him missing, ever responded to the massive public campaign to identify him, ever came forward in any way. That is not ignorance. That is a choice. His parents are now deceased, which, depending on the exact circumstances of his death, may or may not close off the most obvious avenue of criminal accountability. What remains unknown? Precisely how Joseph died. The listed cause is blunt force trauma, but the full circumstances have never been publicly established. Who delivered the fatal blow? Whether any living person was present or complicit. Whether Joseph was ever in a foster or institutional setting, or whether he lived exclusively within his biological family. What his daily life looked like, where he slept. Whether he ever played outside. Whether anyone at any point showed him kindness. The restraint marks, the evidence of confinement, remain one of the most disturbing and unexplained physical findings. They suggest that his captivity was not metaphorical. He may have been physically restrained, possibly regularly. A child, 4 to 6 years old, physically restrained, starved, beaten, hidden from the world, and then, when he died, bathed and wrapped in a blanket as if the person who killed him felt something, guilt or ritual, or the ghost of something that was once human feeling. The Vidocq Society account from BEM, if accurate, suggests the death may have been presented internally as accidental, a fall, a blow to the head during what was described as discipline or bathing. That framing, if true, might explain why no one called police. Not because they felt no guilt, but because they convinced themselves it wasn't murder. It was murder. The totality of this child's treatment, the starvation, the confinement, the abuse, the disposal, constitutes one of the most prolonged and deliberate cases of child homicide in Philadelphia history. And as of today, no one has ever been held legally accountable. Here is where I want to leave you. Joseph Augustus Zarelli was alive during the same years that Philadelphia was throwing a World Series. While families in Fox Chase were buying televisions and planting gardens and sending their children to school, Joseph was hidden, starved, confined, dying. He was 4 to 6 years old. Someone cut his hair clumsily after he died and wrapped him in a blanket. Someone put him in a bassinet box, the kind made to carry new babies, and left him in the woods. And then that person or those people went home. They ate dinner. They went to sleep. They woke up the next morning. Some of them may have lived long lives. Some may have had other children. Some may have told themselves the story of M, that it was an accident, that it wasn't their fault, that the boy is at peace now. And some people who know what happened, who were children themselves in 1957, who perhaps witnessed something they were told never to speak of, may still be alive. They would be in their 70s or 80s now. Some of them may have carried this secret for 65 years. Here is my question for you, and I want you to think about it seriously before you answer in the comments. The Philadelphia police have identified Joseph's family. His parents are dead, but investigators are still being careful, still protecting information, which suggests they believe someone with knowledge, or possibly culpability, may still be living. If you were one of those people, if you were a sibling, a cousin, a neighbor who saw something in 1957 and was told to stay quiet, what would make you come forward now? Is it justice for Joseph? Is it your own conscience before you die? Or do you believe that after 67 years, the silence has become the only truth you know how to live with? Tell me in the comments. Because this case isn't over. And Joseph Zarelli deserves better than silence. If this investigation matters to you, if you believe cold cases like this one deserve serious attention and not just true crime entertainment, subscribe, because we're just getting started. Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born unknown, died 1957, named, finally, in 2022. He was a child. He deserved better than the world he got.